Jay here for Stretford Paddock. That's Joe Smith, and this is a look at potentially United's new look 11. We're going to be looking at what is going on at Manchester United. We've had these transfers that have been basically confirmed by the likes of David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano. Plus, we've had the Community Shield. There's been a couple of performances there you can look at and go, has that given the manager something to think about? So we're going to have a little bit of a chat about what we can expect moving forward and what we could possibly expect for the Fulham game. Yeah. What's there going to be in terms of a new starting 11? I want you to get involved in the comments in the chat. Let us know what you think, because we're going to be talking about the new signings and about players who may or may not be surplus to requirements. So let us know your thoughts. Joseph, I'll start with who we brought in.
Yeah.
So we brought in Lenny Yoro, Joshua Zirkzee, and I'm going to count Matthijs de Ligt and Noussair Mazraoui.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of Lenny Yoro, he's out for at least 3 months. There's been reports that could be even longer, but we know he isn't going to be available anytime soon. Yeah. Zirkzee, we'll start with him. He didn't play in the Community Shield. Now, you were chatting to Stephen Houghton, and he said maybe that is because the manager's saying, look, I need you for the Fulham game. I ain't risking you. However, me and you were chatting about this during the watch-along for the Community Shield, and you were saying the fact that Zirkzee didn't get any minutes to you indicates he won't be playing against Fulham. He won't be starting anyway.
Yeah, I don't think he'll start. I think it's a lack of fitness. It must be. Because Bruno's completely necessary for the Fulham game, and he played.
Yeah.
You know, I think the same about Dalot, for instance, Onana, of course. I think there's a lot of Kobbie Mainoo. There's a lot of players who will play against Fulham who played, and whom without United really struggle. So I don't think this idea of resting Zirkzee to the point where he didn't even get any minutes is because he's definitely starting against Fulham. I think quite the opposite. I think he might come on, and I'm sure he'll be in the squad like he was today, or should I say for the FA Cup, for the Community Shield. But I don't think he'll start. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. He didn't play many minutes in the Euros.
He didn't play any, did he? He played about one.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
So, you know, he's barely kicked a ball for 2 or 3 months now. 2 months since obviously the end of the season. And he didn't go on tour, so he wasn't playing those pre-season matches either. So I do think he's probably a little bit behind. But United have got no fit strikers. We're sort of back to where we were last season. That to one side, though, I like what Zirkzee brings. And he brings something different to Rasmus Højlund, which I like as well. Rasmus Højlund likes the ball played in behind. He's a runner off the last man, loves running into the channels. We've seen 2 or 3 goals from him in the season just gone where he's running onto balls. Even the one against Arsenal, it's a ball in behind. He's running on one-on-one with his defender, pushes him to one side and puts the ball in. It was a very good goal, and we've seen a goal similar to that a handful of times. He's a strong runner, big physical presence. Joshua Zirkzee, despite being a big physical presence, is a come short, come to feet, I want touches of the ball kind of guy. And that is more like Martial, really, except he also has that physical sort of 6'3" stature that Rasmus Højlund possesses. He's not quite as quick, he's not quite as direct, but he's better in the build-up. And I think watching the team that we saw against Manchester City, I'm very excited to see that. Because you saw on one side Marcus Rashford, who again is a bit more of a knock it in behind kind of guy, and we saw Ahmad, who's a give it to feet 1-2 around the box. And I like that we're giving ourselves different options. When Garnacho came on, United looked completely different, and not necessarily better, but just different. We were turning Man City and make them run toward their own goal, and that was in contrast to the quick in and around the box stuff that Ahmad was doing. And we can do that switch again with Højlund and Zirkzee. If you want to play in behind, teams play in a high line, high possession stuff, you put Højlund, you put Garnacho, you put Rashford on, and all of a sudden, balls over the top, balls in behind, you're flying.
Yeah.
If you want to maybe sort of hold possession a bit more, break down a deep line midfield and deep line defensive line, you put Ahmad on, you put Zirkzee on, you maybe even put Mount on the left-hand side, then you can do things completely differently. It gives us options that we didn't have before. I really like the sound of Zirkzee.
Okay, good. Just staying on the attacking front then, we've got Garnacho, who obviously did very well when he came on against Manchester City in the Community Shield. Played a lot of minutes last season, a lot of starts. I think at one point he started like 30 games on the spin or something like that. You had Marcus Rashford, who had a less successful afternoon, to say the least. You also had Amad Diallo, who did okay, did quite well, to be fair to the kid, especially in the first half. The front three then, do you see Marcus, do you see Amad Diallo, or do you see Garnacho starting, or do you see all three of them?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I think just because of fitness, I think it will probably be Rashford and Ahmad.
Yeah.
But very quickly, either of them could go off for Garnacho.
Yeah.
I think that what we saw against City will probably be replicated against Fulham. just because Garnacho's only just come back.
If I can expand it a little bit further than just the Fulham game, because obviously the Fulham game is just this game.
Yeah.
So the next few weeks with no Højlund, do you see Zirkzee coming in then to start and maybe one of those three that we've mentioned making way? Or do you see Zirkzee just being a rotation option? How do you see it panning out?
It's tough because at the moment, in terms of performances, it's Rashford who you drop.
Yeah.
But he's the biggest earner at the club other than Casemiro. And can you really drop Marcus Rashford, like going, longer term, or is the aim always going to be getting back to his best? If Rashford gets dropped, I could see him leaving. And I don't mean like, he's dropped and he's kicked, thrown his toys out the pram. But if Ten Hag doesn't want to start Rashford next season, I think he's worth too much money to stay.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having Rashford on the bench all year, and obviously he's going to play minutes. But if it's Garnacho on the left, Ahmad on the right, Zirkzee or Højlund up front, I don't think Rashford will be here all season. And for that reason, I don't think that will happen.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet, but I think if Marcus Rashford doesn't start playing well or start the season well, I think he will get dropped. I think the manager, who has been a bit more ruthless recently, is Erik Ten Hag. You see that Anthony doesn't get any minutes anymore, and he paid 82 million quid or 80 million quid, whatever it was for him, or 80 million euros. So I think the front three moving forward will feature Marcus Rashford. I think it will get Marcus on the left, Garnacho on the right, and I think Zirkzee, when he's got his match fitness up to speed, could actually end up starting in the middle. I think that Amad Diallo will have to make do with being rotated or coming off the bench, but it could change very quickly. Yeah. Let's talk about midfield. Bruno Fernandes is going to start. Kobbie Mainoo is going to start. Who's playing alongside them? Could Casemiro be in the picture? Because we haven't got a DM. He is a DM. I know he was playing a bit further up the pitch at Wembley. He had a bit of a stinker last season. Pre-season was a mixed bag. A couple of mistakes, a couple of signs of the old Casemiro. He's lost a bit of weight, but I thought he did okay against Manchester City. Yep. He kind of did okay, though, going forward rather than defensively. Do you think he'll feature, or do you think Mason Mount might feature? Do you think it could be a bit of a shuffle? What do you reckon is going to happen?
I think Casemiro's going to start. Yeah. Unless we replace him again. But I think he'll play. I think let's try and, instead of just going Casemiro's done, which he might be, at the top level, he probably is. But let's look at what we can do to minimise his weaknesses. Because if we make the space around him smaller, he's going to look less lost and less in that. Didn't we see him in the void? Yeah. When it's like him and then 15 yards in a circle around him with no other human being in it except opposition players.
Yeah.
Any player would struggle in there, especially someone like Casemiro, who's not particularly quick and is 32.
Yeah.
So, let's try and close that gap up a little bit. Martinez and De Ligt and Mazraoui and whoever it is at left back, push right up, close that gap that we saw against City a little bit. I think we conceded 8 shots against City, which is far less than we did in almost every game last season. That is partly because that gap was smaller. There was less. We were exposed less often because of that. So if we can do that again, and we can't replace Casemiro, I do think he should be a functional player in there. He's not 40. He's 32 years old. It's not that old. In fact, if a player retires at 32, you go, "Oh, that was quite young," and yet we're sort of expecting and thinking he's done at the top level. Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
And maybe even if he is the player we saw last year, if we minimise his exposure to his weaknesses, then we might still have a decent player on our hands. But ideally, we bring someone else in, I think.
Ideally, I agree with you. You'd want to see an Agate or someone else coming in. I think we've been linked with one or two other players. Sander Berge has been another name bandied about. It does feel like it's gone a little bit cold, but it felt like it had gone cold with Matthijs de Ligt. I expect Casemiro to start the Fulham game. Do I think he'll be our man moving forward? If we don't sign anyone, maybe. I just worry. One thing I worry about is asking Kobbie Mainoo to do too much. And I worry with Casemiro, you're asking Mainoo to fulfill, like, be sort of a 6 alongside him and be an 8 as well and try and push forward. And he's still only 19. It's easy to forget that Mainoo's still a kid himself. He's still learning his craft a little bit. I know he's been an amazing player, but he still is. And it's like, you'd want someone up next to him who can win the ball. And I don't know if Casemiro is that guy, but I think moving forward, until we sign someone else, that is what's going to happen. It doesn't seem like anyone's coming in for Casemiro either. Defensively, you mentioned Mazraoui. Does he start for Manchester United? Is he going to get a game?
I think he might. If he can stay fit, I think he starts for United. I think people are underestimating him a little bit because of the injuries, and I've got a few stats on him that I'd like to read out. It's just looking at his numbers across other
lots of greens there.
Yeah, compared to other fullbacks. And again, these are just numbers. This isn't who he is as a player. This isn't everything to know about him. But for people who aren't aware, his passes completed is in the top 8% of all fullbacks in the top 5 leagues. His pass completion percentage as well in the top 3%. His passing generally is excellent. His long pass completion percentage is in the top 7%. His progressive passes are in the top 4%. His defensive is better than you might think as well. His tackles overall are in the top 25%. His tackles in the attacking third, so really pushing up, being that aggressive fullback, are in the top 5% of all fullbacks in the top 5 leagues. He's someone who loves being on the ball, bringing the ball up the pitch as well. Progressive carries, top 30%, but progressive carries into the penalty box are in the top 17%. So he's someone who really is very good going forward. And his tackles and interceptions, like I said there, are high as well. He's someone who can do a little bit of everything, and he's not bad in the air as well. So, top 17% for that.
How do you see it working at fullback then? Is he on the right and Delon on the left? Is that what's going to be United moving forward?
Depending on what's going on with Luke Shaw, I think it might be.
Yeah.
If Luke Shaw, if he's injured, and let's be honest, he's going to miss at least 10 games this season, because when's the last time he didn't? Probably more like 20 if United get to a few semi-finals. You're going to see a lot of opportunity for Dalot out on the left, or even Mazraoui on the left. But I think Mazraoui is the one for me that might surprise a few people. We kind of know who De Ligt is, and I think he's a very good player. But Mazraoui is a little bit more unknown, and the more I look into him, the more I research him and see what people say about him, look at the numbers, look at his performances. I think if he can stay fit, and that's the crucial thing with him, I think he could shock us. I think he could become our first choice right back. I do think that, because when we got Telles, all the stats were amazing, but he's playing in Portugal and he was 28, 29.
Yeah.
You know, Mazraoui is a little bit younger, 26 years old, and he's playing in Germany, which often translates a little bit better than Portugal does, especially in defensive areas. So for me, I'm very excited for him.
So Mazraoui on the right, and then maybe Delot on the left.
Yeah,
because he has played there before, and he's one of Erik Ten Hag's guys, isn't it? Obviously, a lot depends on what happens with Luke Shaw. Don't count Harry Hamas out as well. He could feature. I don't see him starting though for Manchester United. I think at 17, it's a bit of it'd be a massive shock if we had a 17-year-old starting at left back, especially now we've got options there in terms of you can move Delot over there and play Mazraoui. So we'll go with Delot on the left, Mazraoui on the right as being United's first choice fullbacks for now, unless Luke Shaw's fully fit, of course. Centre back then, what's going to happen? Centre back. We've brought in Matthijs de Ligt. Does he start for Manchester United when he's available?
Yeah, he's got to, hasn't he?
He does. And who does he start alongside? Is it him and Martinez then?
Yeah, I think him and Martinez is a lovely little pair, actually.
Would that work? Does that work for you?
For me, it does. I think de Ligt is good on the ball. Like, I sort of explained it like this, and this is obviously not quite fair on any of the people I'm about to mention, but as a rough gauge, if you have Lisandro Martinez on one end of the spectrum and Harry Maguire on the other end, we've sort of filled the gaps in between with different types of players. So you've got Martinez, cute, tidy on the ball, tight turning circle, nippy player, very aggressive, and then you've got Harry Maguire, fantastic in the air, physically sort of brutish, but not very quick, and sort of dawdles a little bit on the ball. I think next to that you've got De Ligt, who is a bit better, a bit cuter, sort of tidier on the ball than Harry Maguire, maybe not as physically dominant, but sort of in there a little bit. Then next to that you've got Lenny Yoro, who again is more sprightly, more light on his feet, slimmer build, better on the ball, and then obviously you've got Martinez, who's all those things we just described. I quite like our sort of collection of top 4 centre-backs there, and I think De Ligt and Martinez will work very well with each other. You know, De Ligt isn't physically sort of imposing in the way Harry Maguire is, and he's not particularly quick either, but he's quick enough and he reads the game so well that I think him and Martinez next to each other could be a fantastic partnership, and you sort of cover a lot of ground with that, with also a bloke who's still very good on the ball. What do you reckon?
I agree. I think De Ligt's coming here to play football, and I think if he's fit, he will play football, especially with Lenny Yoro out. And I'm sort of coming around to the idea that Martinez and De Ligt, because both of them are so good at reading the game as well. They're intelligent footballers. They're not just. It's not just a physical thing with them, like, oh, he's quick and he's strong and he gets away with things because of that. It's not. They read the game very well. Both of them. Both of them are good on the ball. Both of them read the game well. Both of them have played at a very high level, and both of them have had success at a very high level. Martinez, of course, at Ajax and at Manchester United. He's won trophies and he was part of a World Cup winning squad. De Ligt has won
the Copa America just now.
Copa America, sorry, I almost forgot. Yeah, just won the Copa America. And then you've got De Ligt, who's obviously won titles in Holland, in Germany, and in Italy as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. I'm looking forward to seeing this new look Manchester United side. This is a little bit more short term because when Lenny Oro's available, when Rasmus Højlund's available, when we do make some signings, I think United will sign at least one more player in this window. We will see a bit of a change. But we thought we'd have a look now how United could shape up over the next few weeks, certainly for the Fulham game moving forward with that, with the players that are available. Get involved in the chat and the comments and let us know what you think, whether you agree, whether you disagree, or what you think the missing piece of the puzzle could be for this Manchester United side at the minute. Joe, always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Go and check out Joe Smith on the Sloppy Joe's podcast. You know where to find me. I've been Jay Moy. This has been a new look Manchester United side. Thanks for watching.